Morning, gentlemen.
Morning,
Maybe
Manav.
we can start with Vivek, since you're the furthest from me. Maybe give a 1-minute brief introduction of yourself and your brand.
Sure. As the introduction already said, Regional Vice President for Southwest Asia. I oversee the group's hotels in India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal, across 4 brands that we have there currently, which is InterContinental, Crown Plaza, Holiday Inn, Holiday Inn Express. Prior to that, I was overseeing the group's operations in Southeast Asia, and I spent 8 years with Starwood and 6 years with Hyatt before that. Rahul?
Executive Director of CG Corp Global and MD of CG Hospitality. We are a 150-year-old family business out of Nepal. We are in 16 different business verticals ranging from FMCG to financial services, education, hospitality, and also our CG Foundation. Our hospitality group, CG Hospitality itself, is a group with 125 hotels in over 12 countries in 30 destinations. And Sri Lanka specifically, we are a group of 7 hotels and many more in the pipeline that we are looking at upgrading. And yeah, I think that's in short about us.
Norbert?
Norbert Vaz, VP Business Development, Archipelago International. We are a privately owned, family-owned hotel operator, pretty much the largest independent, privately owned hotel operator in Southeast Asia. We are based in Jakarta. We operate more than 150 hotels with a pipeline of 62 and through 9 different brands, mostly in Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, the Middle East, and Cuba. And we're here in Sri Lanka to learn what's happening here.
Hiran?
Ayubowan, Hiran Cooray is my name. This is my 32nd year in hospitality. My father started Jetwing, so I'm one of the lucky boys. I've just been working in the company that he founded. In Sri Lanka, we have a total of 26 hotels. Rahul and his father Binod are our partners in 2 of the hotels, and we manage some of the other properties as well. We have a public listed company now, Jetwing Symphony, which I happen to be the chairman of that. And we are also into other areas of tourism, Jetwing Travels, which is one of the leading travel agencies, destination management companies. We are also into ecotourism, adventure tourism, anything related to tourism in Sri Lanka. I can see Tim here. We have a joint venture with Go Vacations, based out of Bangkok, and Tim is our CEO running Go Vacations here, which is a joint venture between Jetwing and Germany's Dare Touristic.
Great. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that introduction. And Hiran, I'm not going to ask you this question, but the next one is for the rest of them. How does Sri Lanka fit into, and Norbert, I'll start with you. How does Sri Lanka fit into your organization's plans or visions?
Wonderful question. Currently, because we're privately owned and small in a sense, so mid-sized, geographically Sri Lanka for us makes a lot of sense because we have a lot of work in the Middle East in the moment, and between our offices in Jakarta and the Middle East, it's quite easy to stop over in Sri Lanka and lend a helping hand here. So basically, it's a geographical decision.
Right.
When you're a smaller company like us, you really need to make sure that you put your resources into areas where you actually can make a difference and can be present. Yeah.
Right. Rahul?
Sri Lanka actually, I would say, is one of the most important pieces in our hospitality footprint, because we started our hospitality journey in Sri Lanka itself. This was a time when times were tough, and a time when even Sri Lankans and Maldivians were thinking twice to invest in assets, and that's when we decided to come together with Taj. Over a period of time, obviously we learned a lot about the hospitality landscape, as Hiran mentioned. I mean, we're very proud of our partnership with Jetwing in the 2 hotels we have, including the other hotels that they manage together with CHC Ceylon Hotels as well. And we continue to look at this market having immense opportunity, and we continue to grow in this market itself. And this by virtue of the location itself and the opportunity that it poses in the region, we continue looking at growing in this market. So it's very, very important for us to be here in this market and continue growing.
Vivek, how about you?
Yeah, look, InterContinental Hotels Group has obviously been accelerating its growth in the last few years tremendously in this region. Sri Lanka is one of the hottest tourism markets. I mean, it's had double-digit tourism growth over here. The government is very tourism friendly, and the reality of the fact that both Indians and Chinese make up a large part of arrivals here, and in those markets we are amongst the dominant players, so our customers have strong brand recognition coming into Sri Lanka. Not only that, we ran the first internationally branded hotel, which was the InterContinental Colombo here, so our brand resonates very well with Sri Lankans, so it is a critical part of our growth plans. In the near future, we would be looking to open and rather come back to Colombo with an InterContinental. We're also looking to open a Holiday Inn. These both should happen within the next 24 months. And then we are in conversations with other developers here for more of our brands in the near future. So bottom line, it's an extremely important market for us.
Right. Hiran, since you're the local, if I may say, homeboy, yeah. Right? What's your outlook for the Sri Lankan sector for 2019 and beyond? And I know you're basically the consultant on the tape diet.
Well, I mean, I think 2019 started off very well. It's because, Lonely Planet has said we are the #1 destination to
You got a government back.
A government back. It didn't matter very much actually, because with or without government, tourism ran. So it didn't make much of a difference. But I think we're getting a lot of positive vibes internationally. That is interesting, and even though the So Sri Lanka campaign hasn't really kicked off the way we wanted, but the social media, the international media, and also our local media has projected the image of our country quite well, and the bookings are coming in at a very, very rapid pace. So we are having a very good January, February, and forward bookings are also looking good. I think 2019 looks very good for Sri Lanka.
I'm going to stick with you for a bit more. Infrastructure, airport infrastructure, this time it was much more crowded.
Yes.
Are there things happening on that front? And a very common complaint from people who came in from Hong Kong or people who come in from India is that connectivity is poor. You almost land up in midnight.
Yeah.
Is that planned by you guys so that the hotel bookings are better? Because
I think to answer the first question about the airport, as we speak, I think they are planning on expanding the airport. There is a planning process on, so they know that capacity is limited in the airport, and there is a plan to expand the airport. That's happening. As for the flights, it depends on the airlines. I mean, sometimes how their schedules work. So we are not in a position to influence too much as to how the scheduling works, but we would obviously like to see. I mean, like airlines like Singapore Airlines now, earlier they used to have one flight a day, now they have Silk Air as well coming in during the daytime. Emirates has about 5 flights a day. Qatar has about 4 or 5. So there is flights coming in at all odd hours as well.
Right. Okay. Rahul, looking at the present day scenario in Sri Lanka, what do you think are the 2 main opportunities in Sri Lanka, and what perhaps are the 2 main challenges?
I think in terms of opportunity, as we all know, that Sri Lanka touched 2.4 million tourists this year. The opportunities that we see out of those 2.4 million tourists, I think majority of those are tourists that come in and stay mostly in the unbranded and unclassified hotels. And we see a huge space in the luxury boutique segment. I think Manav and I also spoke yesterday that we see the same trend in India as well. So, I mean, that has been our group strategy as well over the past, I would say, 3 to 4 years to partner or pick up assets that are in this niche space to cater to this market, because I see a void in that rate bracket as well. And I see that the tourism now working towards growing to 3 million, and that let's say that share of the pie is only going to increase over a period of time. Second, I would say in terms of actually I'll talk a little bit about the challenges. I think Hiran already touched upon the connectivity. I think one challenge I see in Sri Lanka is the connectivity inside Sri Lanka itself, which is something that definitely needs to become better, and without which I don't see the growth of even these sectors, even in the far-flung areas across the peninsula. And the second challenge I see, which I can relate a lot to in Nepal as well, is I would say the perception of the market itself in the international arena. Because, Nepal is going through that challenge right now as well, whereby you see the perception of Sri Lanka, which is improving, but perception of Sri Lanka being a backpacker's destination where you can go for a cheap holiday. I think that needs to change, and quality tourism needs to come about, learning a little bit from also what Bhutan has adopted, not to that extreme, but at least to a certain extent.
Right. Vivek or Norbert, do you want to add to that in terms of what do you think are the two best opportunities or two challenges from an slightly outsider's perspective?
The way we look into Sri Lanka, or our opportunities here, is more in the middle segment. I see a huge shortage of well-managed, clean, budgeted mid-market hotels here. We are not here to compete with the Shangri-Las and the InterContinentals or the Touch of those worlds, but I'm here to give him a hard time, in the mid-segment. That's where we see an opportunity. ASEAN, Chinese markets, emerging markets are growing. Even Indonesian business into Sri Lanka is improving and increasing dramatically. So away from the Eurocentric, US-centric luxury tourism, more into a regional mid-market tourism. That's where I see a lot of opportunities.
Vivek, your thoughts on both opportunity and challenges?
Sure.
Perhaps?
In terms of opportunity, obviously, as sort of the panel already mentioned, the opportunity for branded hotels, and certainly for us across the segments from mid-scale to upscale to luxury. And if you look at economies like Sri Lanka, India, as they continue to grow, certainly the mid-scale customer continues to grow, and for us the opportunity in Holiday Inn and obviously in the luxury space with brands like InterContinental and Regent is strong. So that's the opportunity. I think in terms of challenges, and I'll caveat my statement by saying, again, we've just re-entered here, so there's a caveat to that I'm not fully up to speed on this point, but my guess is, based on what I've seen, I think talent is also potentially problematic. Like most South Asian countries, I would say, hazard a guess to say that tourism probably isn't the preferred employer of choice amongst the workforce here, and again, the people who are talented would typically want to move overseas, which is common. So I think that would be potentially a challenge here, though as I caveat that we're early days to see whether that plays out accordingly.
So one of the things that has been most exciting for us coming back every 6 months or a year is the skyline of Colombo, right? Particularly downtown, or this can be called downtown. There's a lot of supply coming in. How's that, Hiran, how's that going to change, and what should Colombo be doing to kind of perhaps improve the MICE segment? Because I would imagine with these large boxes, MICE is going to be a critical factor.
Yeah, because I think, I don't know whether Vinod will recall this, because a few years ago, Vinod mentioned at a conference, I think in Hong Kong or whatever, when Sri Lankans talk of Sri Lanka's tourism, we don't talk of Colombo, right? We talk of, you remember that, Vinod? You talk of Sigiriya, you talk of Yala, you talk of Kandy, our beaches, everything. So we ourselves haven't made Colombo a vibrant city, right? Colombo a happening city. So a lot of the tourists tend to bypass Colombo now. Now with a lot of inventory coming into Colombo, so the challenge is there. How do we project the image of Colombo for tourists? Okay, we get the business travelers, the people visiting to meet friends and relations, weddings, that kind of people do come into Colombo and they stay in Colombo. But now there is Shangri-La, there is hopefully a Hyatt or whatever the international brands, the Hilton and the Taj have been here. InterContinental was here, gone, but hopefully you'll be back again. But all these, and local players like us, we are also in here. And there is also a lot of unbranded accommodation developing in Colombo. So there's a lot of inventory, and as a result, everybody is selling on price. I mean, earlier there was a, the minimum price. That's also, I'm also not sure whether it's on or off, but be that as it may, no hotel is able to get more than $150 a room. And without, with all these big brands, when they are selling at that price, then we, the local brands, struggle more. So unless we really project Colombo as a, vibrant, city, we are going to struggle with all the inventory coming in here.
Right. Anyone else has thoughts on how Colombo can be marketed better as a MICE destination?
In my humble opinion, the challenge is really who are we competing with here? And the answer would be you're actually competing with Singapore. You're really competing with Dubai, basically. Geographically, Colombo could be the perfect hub for the Indian Ocean, and that's how it needs to position itself, as the center hub of the Indian Ocean. So, in order to do that, yes, airport connectivity is a major hurdle. And we need some high-profile events here. We need some high-profile, jazz festival, Formula One race, you name it. We need to put Colombo as a map as the center hub for the Indian Ocean.
Right. Yeah. Norbert, I'm going to stick with you for a second. How does a company like Archipelago compete with the international biggies, right? I mean, you've got IAG on one side, I've got Accor in the audience, you've got the Marriotts and the Hyatts. How do you compete with the big boys? And why should, if you're going to go asset light, why should owners be tying up with you vis-a-vis one of those companies?
Okay, I think there's a market for all of us. There's a market for the big boys, and there's a market for regional operators. We see more and more of a trend of hotel owners becoming smarter and more demanding, and hotel management contracts changing more into manchise and franchise. So we beat the big boys on our home turf significantly by just being faster, more flexible. And let's be perfectly honest with you, we have a low-cost operating model that works, and we beat almost every single one of them when it comes to GOP. So that's it, simple as that.
Right. Rahul, CG Corp has got lots of partnerships globally, particularly in Sri Lanka. You've got Taj, you've got Jetwings, you've got Ceylon Hotels. Maybe I've missed out on a few. How has your experience been with all of these, and are there any more partnerships in the pipeline?
My father always says this all the time, that it's always a pleasure dealing with Sri Lankans. They are wonderful people and great people to deal with, and our partnership has actually started, as I mentioned, with Taj, and we are growing as we speak today, and with Hiran, which started almost a decade back.
2009.
Yeah. So, and that's also growing, and with Ceylon Hotels also, where we partnered with them in the heritage legacy rest houses all across the peninsula. I mean, we value our partnerships here because we feel that all the partners here want to grow as well, because they see that opportunity in the market itself. At the moment, we are focusing on our existing assets and renovating them and refurbishing them to get them to its glory, I will say, from the Ceylon Hotels partnership. At the moment, we are entrepreneurs, right? And we're constantly looking for opportunities to keep growing in this market. We see huge potential here, as I mentioned. And yeah, so we are here to stay.
So being the only I shouldn't say real investor, being one of the main investors of the Sri Lankan hotel business, what are your investment sentiments currently for Sri Lanka? Would you build, buy, hold, or sell?
I would hold. I think it's, as Hiran mentioned, 2019 has started on a good note. And although I do see a little bit of pressure in terms of due to the inventories that are coming in, and in terms of the rates that are coming into the Colombo market itself, but I foresee that this is only going to improve because the fundamentals are in place in Sri Lanka. It's a matter of time, and I only see that growing over a period of time.
Right. Vivek, for you, IHG predominantly, at least in the US, is a franchise company. What's your strategy going to be in India, in Sri Lanka? Is it going to be mainly franchise, management, or a combination of both?
Yeah, look, I would say to you to begin with management, but we're certainly open to other business models depending on who the partner is and what expertise they bring to the table. But yeah, even in other parts of Southwest Asia, the core is management, but we've certainly started looking at other models like franchising as well. And like I said, to begin with management, but we're certainly open to other models in Sri Lanka for sure.
And would that focus be more on luxury, upscale, mid-scale budget? Where do you see the most of the action from IHG's portfolio?
I would say it would be sort of mid-scale and above. So we've got opportunities in mid-scale which we're already working on, certainly in the luxury with InterContinental. So I think, as previously pointed out, the branded environment here is a huge opportunity across all segments. So for us, it's mid-scale, upscale, and luxury here. And
you said you've got an InterContinental opening sometime in the next, 12 months, 24
Yeah,
months?
so that's correct. We have an InterContinental opening here, so we'll be back in the country after the 70s, which we're really, really excited about. It's on the main Gaul Road. It's going to be the tallest hotel building, 45 stories. Going to have that rooftop bar and restaurant, which was associated with the old InterContinental.
So we can host the cocktails there.
Absolutely. we should and we can.
All right. You know, one of the things I want to ask, and it's been a controversy in many parts, and certainly in South Asia last month it became a big issue, is this whole thing of the role of the OTA, right? And I know because of your revenue management background as well, you probably have your own thoughts on it. Do you see it continue to eat into the profits of the traditional hotels?
Okay. So this is one of those things, this is what I call the question that never dies, okay? It is truly the question that never dies. I guess, look, we don't see it as eating into the profit of businesses. The reality of it is OTAs are valuable partners. They are a distribution channel. Guests have options to book on OTAs. They have options to book on our site. Our focus obviously is the branded website, not only for the fact that it's the most profitable source of business, but also the lion's share of the customers who book on our branded sites would be members of our loyalty program. So we have access to their preferences, and that allows us to deliver sort of unique personalized experiences on property with that, which then generates the emotional stickiness that we're looking for with our brand. So that's our focus, but no, OTAs are our partners. They will stay, as will we, and so that's the way we see it.
Okay. Hiran, you briefly mentioned Jetwing Symphony, and can you help us differentiate that between Jetwing Symphony and the rest of Jetwings?
Well, we are a company 45 years in hospitality tourism in Sri Lanka, and after the end of the conflict in 2009, when it became finally a level playing field in the tourism world, and we started expanding, one of the requests was that, why don't you list your company, right? Because we have large travel agency, we had a hotel base already, and then we thought a lot about listing, and then finally thought, okay, some of the hotels that were started by my father, we didn't want to, his wish was don't go public, right? So my sister and I couldn't change his wish because he was no longer among the living. So therefore, what we decided was the new properties that we start, we will have an umbrella company, holding company. So Jetwing, that's how Jetwing Symphony was born. And Jetwing Symphony now owns and manages 5 hotels. And we are building the 6th one in Kandy, a luxury 26-suite hotel in Kandy. Kandy is one place where we don't have a hotel. We own land jointly with Binod and ourselves, but we did not get approval to build that hotel. So we had plans to build a lovely luxury hotel in Kandy together. That for the last 6-7 years we are trying to get approval to build it, but we have failed. So therefore we found another smaller block and we are building 26 suites there. Symphony owns land in Trincomalee, which is another area in the east coast of the country. For those of you who haven't been to the east, please travel there, because that's some area, there's a lot of space, a lot of, undeveloped areas, which if you believe in Sri Lanka and you think of the long term, that's an area to go and get land and have those developments there. So Symphony is hope, in the next 2-3 years we'll probably focus on Sri Lanka and keep expanding here. But then of course, we might even look at investing outside through that company.
Right. So what's your most ambitious project right now?
Jetwing Symphony owns Velavaya, hotel called Kaduruketa, Jetwing Kaduruketa. Now Velavaya is not known for tourism, was never known for tourism. Ella is known for tourism. And one of our strengths have been going into areas where, tourism is not developed. That's as one of the local companies pioneering tourism here. We like to go to areas because we think that's responsible tourism as well. Don't only go to Sigiriya, don't only go to Yala, don't only go to Kandivaya. You don't need to market those areas, it's already marketed, already positioned. So we ourselves took on the challenge, like the way my father did Lighthouse Hotel in Gaul, when all the analysts, all the investors, all the developers said he's crazy to go to Gaul and build the Lighthouse Hotel. In 1995, he went and started promoting and establishing Gaul. Now everybody's in Gaul. Similarly, Velavaya, we started, it's 50 acres of paddy field and, 25 dwellings, luxury villas we have. So we ourselves are promoting Velavaya. www.velavaya.com is managed by our staff. Right. So we are promoting Velavaya because in Colombo people ask, why did you build a hotel in Velavaya? What is there to do in Velavaya? So we are educating our own Sri Lankan friends first, and then hopefully the foreigners will come later. So that's for us a huge challenge, and we are thriving on that. We are enjoying, people going there and enjoying that peaceful area.
So since you have so many friends from overseas today, my next question is, which international hotel chain, in your opinion, has localized the most effectively in Sri Lanka?
Oh my God, that's a difficult question. Which
international hotel chain has localized itself most effectively in Sri Lanka?
Tough one. I don't think anyone has, really, to be honest, because they keep changing the general managers every 2-3 years, right? So there is no one who really falls in love with the country, no one who tries to understand the culture, the nature, the history, the people behavior. One of the guys who really understood is a guy called Jerome Oviti, who worked at Hilton, Colombo as a general manager. Now he's working with us. He joined our company. He's the director of operations of Jetwing. But others, they just come and go. So really,
You're being diplomatic.
I don't think anyone has really localized. Probably to a certain extent, Amman. Amman has 2 hotels, and they have to a certain extent, understood a little bit of the local culture, local feel, and moved on. Others just bring the brand, put the brand, and expect people to come because of the brand.
Right. Robert, you mentioned about Archipelago heading to, you're the largest Indonesian player and you're heading to Africa and the Middle East. What's the thought process behind that move?
First of all, as an independent company, we don't have any growth targets. So we only want to go into areas where we feel confident that we can actually deliver and make a real difference. Yeah? The Middle East makes a lot of sense for us because we have such a pull in Malaysia and Indonesia, which are the largest Muslim countries in the world, Indonesia in particular, when it comes to pilgrimage. So we are now doing a 600-room, 5-star Grand Aston walking distance from the Kaaba with Jabal Omar. And we have 5,000 Indonesians traveling to Mecca a day. So, and that market is growing and growing. So it will be very, very easy for us to fill the hotel. Even if we would only fill it with Indonesians, which we're not going to do. Huh? It's extremely easy. So strategically, that makes a lot of sense for us to go into the Middle East. In particular, also, we like to go into areas where you need to be really, really hands-on and be really, really good in implementing systems and training people. Because we depend entirely on non-expat labor, and exactly what was just mentioned is expensive expert GM that changes every 2 years. We don't do that. We only work with locals, and we set up systems and training facilities that make that work. That worked very, very well for us in the Philippines, worked extremely well in Indonesia, extremely well in Malaysia, and I think we can replicate that system here in Sri Lanka as well. We've actually just been hired to set up one of our hotels and training facilities by the Cuban government in Cuba because of that. And that was just a pure coincidence. We never thought of going to Cuba until they called us and invited us because of our training expertise and our reputation. So it's a little bit opportunistic, but I hope it makes sense. I'm only going into markets I really believe I can make a difference. Other than that, it's not a flag game for us. We are privately owned. We're already much more successful than we ever dreamt we would be when we set up the company 20 years ago. And we can grow now in a relaxed, professional, step-by-step manner.
Right. Vivek, last time we briefly touched upon this over drinks. With both Airbnb eating away at global and local tourist, consumers and newer groups like OYO, and I'm not too sure if OYO has reached, but I can tell you they'll be here very shortly, targeting the budget end of this market. How does a hotel chain really, the traditional boys, how do they protect themselves against it? Or do you need to protect yourself?
Remind me next time about what I say at drinks with you, Manav, but no, I'm kidding. Look, I think that there are a couple
I have it recorded, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
I was kidding. Look, I think that any new form of competition is a good thing in the long run. I think it helps all the traditional players up their game. The way I see it in terms of certainly Airbnb and OYO at this point in time, they're certainly making inroads. Do I see that as sort of ending the hotel business? Not at all. If you look at what they're doing fundamentally, sort of Airbnb, home sharing has been around certainly in the Asian context since the dawn of time. People have gone and stayed with friends and family. What Airbnb has done is offered a platform for that, which is fantastic. So personally, my view is what we need to keep doing is what we do best, that is continuing to understand our guests' needs and preferences and delivering unique experiences that keep bringing them back again and again. Is what we are focused on, and obviously making sure the booking experience is seamless, etc. So I don't see Airbnb, while certainly we pay attention to them, do I see Airbnb and OYO as an existential threat to the hotel business? Not at all. I think at this stage there is room enough for everybody, and we'll keep an eye on what they do and continue to evolve and do well.
Right. Robert, do you have an opinion on that, particularly coming from Indonesia, where I think Airbnb is pretty big?
For us, when you look at markets where Airbnb is really big, like London, Paris, New York, you can barely get a hotel room there. I don't see it as competition at all. I think actually everything that contributes to make traveling more accessible and more exciting and more fun is positive for our industry. And if all, I can always say Airbnb maybe reminds us that we need to be a little bit creative and think back of providing hospitality, good old-fashioned hospitality, experiences, share our local knowledge with our guests, which sometimes, because we got so tied up into distribution and yield management, that we kind of forget a little bit about hospitality, and Airbnb reminds us again of that. So it's a good competition, and it's a good kick in the butt that we needed, and it adds to the flavor of traveling. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Right. Rahul, you've got presence, if I'm correct, in China, Africa, Indonesia, Nepal, Thailand, India, obviously Sri Lanka. I'm not too sure if I missed out other countries, so my apologies. And if I'm correct, you own and lease or operate over 100 hotels, and you can correct me on that number. Is there anything else cooking?
Well, we are constantly looking at growing into different newer geographies, and I would say also in geographies where we have a smaller presence. And how we are trying to do that is through investments in asset-light companies, I would say from management companies. And just to touch upon a little bit on that, we were also majority shareholders of Alila Hotels, which was recently sold to Hyatt International. And we know the extent of the brand perception as well as the extent of how Alila grew all across from your Southeast Asia to India and also in America before it was offloaded. And we adopted a similar strategy for India as well. I mean, it's a very difficult market. I'm sure many of you will agree to that statement. And we invested in a management company called Concept Hospitality about 3 years back. And now we are already at 60 hotels there operating and 25 more signed. And now we are also shifting, I won't say shifting, I will say we are adding to our strategy to look at newer markets like Europe and Americas. We've had a investment in New York for the longest time. We have a Radisson at JFK. But as a group, we want to not just have one asset in a region that is so far flung. We want to make sure that we have some scale. That's why we are looking at a very interesting investment opportunity in the Americas as well as the Caribbean. Hopefully that should give us a bigger platform there, by way of which we also recently started the strategy of doing funds. And we are doing that in India. Now we are ready now, and we are embarking on that journey to invest in distressed assets in India. We've also tied up with an operating partner and a big brand to do a fund in Europe. And that is our strategy for Americas as well.
Okay. And this fund, you mentioned just now a fund, is that something that would be a fund which would be focused in a particular region, or would it be a global vehicle?
Well, the Indian, I'll talk about all the two funds that we have in place at the moment. The fund, one of the funds is focused in the Indian subcontinent because we see huge opportunities in the distressed asset space. And like we said, we also have our own 6 brands that we are expanding in these regions itself. So while we are also looking at growing the asset footprint of our brands, we are also talking to other international partners to partner with them for the operations of these hotels as well. In Europe, it's more for a more mature asset, I would say. It's not a distressed asset fund. It's more for assets are available out there in distress, no doubt, but more so operating and mature assets in Europe itself through already a third-party brand, which I will tell you about soon.
All right. Hiran, minimum pricing, right? For many years, at least the last decade, minimum pricing became an important part, right? So you would have occupancy that very low, and yet room rates were pretty high comparatively. Is that still around? And I know I had the last conference, I said something which the minister didn't like, and it became
Minister is not here, so you can say what you will like.
It became a bit of a controversy because I basically said you need to throw it out and let the market decide what what the room rate should be. What are your views on minimum pricing, and does it exist? Would you think
I don't think it really exists now.
Okay.
Right? At least nobody's monitoring it. But I think I have a different view. I as a hotelier and an owner manager of properties, I think we are selling too low. If the Shangri-La in Colombo cannot get $300 a room, which is
they don't get $300
no,
in
they
India
don't.
either. So
What?
They don't get $300 in India either.
Oh, then there's
Or
something
in
wrong,
Thailand,
because then
or
the investor is not going to get money. Hilton Colombo should get $200 or $300 a room, right? If the brands are not getting those rates, the locals and the local operators are also not going to get. So there is no, we can't expect to build fabulous hotels, right? I mentioned Shangri-La because Shangri-La is one company, they put their money in. They are not an asset-light company. They are owner-operator, right? So for them, they would look at returns. Whereas all the other big players, they don't put their money in, right? They just come and manage. They bring their brand. Whereas for the investor, if you're looking at a return, then you need to have higher prices.
You're scaring Vivek. He's worried about how he's going to open the InterContinental at $300.
Exactly. If InterContinental comes here and starts selling at $125, we have a problem, right? So InterContinental must be, being one of the largest and the most known brands in the world, InterContinental, Hilton, Marriott must lead the price, not follow the price, right? If Accor comes in, Accor must lead the price, so that the others can follow. If we are going to lead the price as a local hotel company, which our brand is not known internationally, then what do we do having the international brands? We need the international brands to lead and take Sri Lanka off onto a higher pricing category. And so for me, minimum rate doesn't matter. I want maximum rate. As an owner, manager, I want maximum rates, not minimum.
Any of you have an opinion on minimum hotel pricing? And because till recently Colombo had that. Any Norbert or Rahul?
I can actually speak from an investor's point of view. I do resonate what Hiran is saying, and this goes back into, I would say, 10 years back when the development landscape was nowhere close to what it is today. And those times, you had the higher inventory hotels literally lowering the rates just to get a higher occupancies and to get people to drive the F&B revenues up. And hotel investors and owners like us in Taj Samudra were really, really suffering. So I would say that the minimum rate which was brought in for thereafter was actually helpful. Because I think it goes back to my point about the perception of the market as well. If you have players like Taj and Shangri-La and InterContinental, if they're not able to derive rates at least of $150, $200, then what are we doing here? So I think it's important to have, even if there may not be a law, but there needs to be a general feeling or consensus in the hospitality fraternity that the rates need to only be going up, and there needs to be ethical practices in terms of managing the rates as well. Otherwise, investors are going to suffer, and the market itself, Colombo market itself, is going to suffer from a rate perspective.
Right. To me, I'm sorry if I hear words like hospitality, fraternity, I see a price fixing mafia. That is counterproductive. We cannot look at Colombo only, and if there's too many luxury hotels being built and they're not achieving the rate they need to make a return of investment, that's the fault of the owner, building a hotel that's not necessary, that nobody needs. And we're competing not with each other here or the locals, we're competing with other destinations. We're competing with Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Hong Kong and Singapore and so if we have price fixing here, long term, we're just hurting ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. So look, obviously, a couple of points that were raised here. I think that I don't disagree with what Hiran is saying in terms of, in essence, monetizing brand value and capturing the price. That being said, finally, pricing is a function of demand, supply, consumer dynamics, etc., which, and this is always a hard part from an investment standpoint, is in many cases disassociated with the investment decision. Just because you spend $100 to buy a piece of land does not mean the consumer is going to pay when that's built up. So that's where the two kind of disconnect. One is driven by market consumer realities, the other is driven by real estate investment realities, and the two don't necessarily converge, right? So I think it's important to make that distinction. As I said, but that being said, I don't disagree with Hiran's fundamental premise that that brands need to capture value through pricing and all that said. So yeah, so that's my take on that.
So this kind of ties into one of my last questions for everyone out here is, which is the one single parameter which you would gaze to kind of see the success of a company? Would it be number of rooms? Would it be total revenue? Would it be profit margins? Would it be stock price? Or like Hiran said, would it be the room rate? Hiran, do you want to?
Yeah. To me, it's customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. If our customers are not satisfied and if our employees are not satisfied, we won't have business.
But customers are never going to be satisfied with very high room rate that you're asking for. So you can't have
give them value for money. You give them value for money, you will have them satisfied. And so for us, we might have the largest number of hotels in Sri Lanka, but we don't count the number of rooms. We just look at every day, we look at the customer satisfaction. You know, if the people are not happy, those who are staying in our rooms, who are staying in our hotels are not happy, if one person is not happy, we just kick the hell out, you know. We just, you know, get activated and activated and activated. For us, it's important that whom we serve goes back happy. So for us and in order to do that, we have to keep our employees happy. So we just measure our success by that. And of course, the profit is also important. But
Norbert, how about you?
One thing, I can only pick one thing, would be as a hotel operator, GOP. I'm extremely excited about cross-operating profits of our hotels, and as long as I'm doing better than my competition, I know I did my job well. RGI, Revenue Generation Index, meaning my RevPAR in comparison with the comp set, extremely important too. We always lead, or at least we're number 2 in the market, and other than that, we are not happy. So RGI and GOP.
Right.
Pure numbers game. Yeah. Guest satisfaction, sorry to interrupt. Very important, of course, but I mean, I can give somebody a presidential suite with a complimentary bottle of wine for $10 a night, and he would be very satisfied. But that's not really what we are. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. Sure.
I mean, we are all here to make money, right? So obviously that's the most important aspect. But I would say that for a group like ours, I mean, we don't have the aspiration to become a Marriott or a Starwood. I would say that it's a combination of two things. And the first thing is creating a hotel that has a lasting impression on your customers. I mean, we have quite a few of those in our portfolio, and some of them with our partners. Hiran, they are smaller portfolio properties, but then those properties are well known all over the world for its character or its design or its customer satisfaction, whatever it is. So I think it's about what property with that brand can come out within your portfolio is actually what's more important to us. What can you create that's different, that stays with people? Otherwise, I mean, we are all in the hospitality field. We want to do something different, right?
Vivek, you want to add some?
Sure. I mean, look, obviously the metrics you mentioned, I mean, look, being a publicly listed company, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that sustainable growth is not what we look at. We absolutely do, but that's an end outcome. To me, it's about owner value, which is a function of optimizing the profitability of the assets that they entrust to us. And if we do that, then we will get the sustainable growth that as a public company we look for.
Right. So I'm just going to go around and ask a few short questions. Vivek, what's the best advice someone has given you for your career?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. Okay, I'll try and keep it really brief. Many years ago, I met with a managing partner at one of the big 3 consulting firms, and I was talking about a career move. And they went on in great depth exploring the negative aspects of the move. And I was like, this person was from a private equity fund consulting firm, and I was like, I don't get it. I actually told him, I said, this conversation is taking a negative turn. And the gentleman told me, you misunderstand. He says, I deal with millionaires and billionaires all the time talking about all the great things they're going to do. I meet with employees talking about all the great things they're going to do. Nobody ever does their due diligence. If things don't work out, what will happen? So you're taking on a pretty risky move. I just want to make sure that you have done your due diligence on the downside of all that. And if you're comfortable with the downside of all that, go and do it. As far as the upside, everybody knows what the upside is. So that was the best piece of career advice I got.
Rahul?
I would say the best advice that I have got is from my father. Obviously, our group has a vision in terms of where we want to get to in the next 5 years, but what he always tells me is that you may have a vision, but if you don't have a well-articulated plan to get there, then it's pretty much futile, you know. So,
Norbert?
That's a tough one. I don't know, I just associate myself with people that I trust and that have high ethics. And that has always worked out well.
Right. Hiran?
Be a servant leader and just be humble as much as possible.
Okay. And how, what helps you get through a very busy day?
Me?
Yes. You look surprised.
Yes.
You're not busy, or?
Well, I mean, I get involved in anything from hotel development to management to, all sorts of things. Customer complaints, anything that goes, finance. I mean, I try not to get rattled and, look very busy.
But
and
isn't that Sri Lankan in nature that
I
usually
know, maybe the way I was brought up by my father as well. I think he has to take a lot of credit. He was a cool, casual guy as well. So similarly, I follow him.
Right. Norbert, what makes you get through a very busy day?
I love to get up very early in the morning, and I never have a busy day because of that. I get up at 5, I'm in the office by 6:30. I'm done with all the crap by 9, and the rest of the day I have time to talk to people, and I never get busy because of that.
All right.
But you just need to have discipline, go to bed early, work out, live healthy, and get up early. It's as simple as that.
Right. Rahul?
I think it's similar to what Hiran mentioned, but more so my interaction is more, my focus has been more in terms of growth and development. So that's what my focus has been. So all through the day in terms of looking at the larger vision, how to get there, and obviously the growth of the company itself. That's what takes most of my time, and I love that pressure because I know where we have to get to. And I think with the leadership and guidance I have with my father, I think we are getting there.
Right. Vivek?
Actually, that's easy for me. It's focus, a clear understanding of trade-offs, and the ability to say no.
Okay. Last one-word question, and it is the last one. What's your favorite Sri Lankan dish, if you have one? Rahul, otherwise?
Hoppers, egg hoppers.
We had them at breakfast yesterday. Norbert, have you got around to trying out Sri Lankan cuisine?
I can't really say what's my favorite dish, but I had a tuk-tuk driver and I told him I want to invite him for breakfast to the place that he loves the most. And I had a fantastic meal.
Okay.
With a tuk-tuk driver, loved it. That was on Sunday morning, really loved it. Yeah.
Hiran, you can have the last word.
Yeah, my wife makes lovely fish curry, pol sambal and bread.
I think I've had some of that. Thank you so much. And with that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the panelists. Thank you.